Welcome to Life Stories, where we dive into real-life experiences that leave a lasting impact. Today's story is about a woman who, after giving birth to her son, found herself battling more than just sleepless nights. Her in-laws, uninvited and unwelcome, moved into her home, claiming they were there to help, only to take over her life. What followed was a journey of betrayal, strength, and reclaiming control. This is a tale of standing up for yourself when the ones you love push you too far. Subscribe to the channel to start today's story and see how she took back her life. They say childbirth is the most transformative moment of your life. That everything changes the instant you hear your baby cry for the first time. And they're right, just not in the way I imagined. After 20 hours of labor, 20 hours of screaming, trembling, breaking apart, I finally held my son in my arms. We named him Noah. His skin was impossibly soft, his breath warm against my collarbone. I was exhausted beyond words. But I felt that quiet, overwhelming love I'd heard mothers speak of. I expected the days that followed to be a soft blur of feeding, sleeping, and watching the light shift across the nursery walls. But I was wrong. We had only been home for a few hours when it began. The doorbell rang. I was slumped on the couch, half asleep, stitches aching, bleeding still. My body was broken in places no one tells you about. My husband, Jake, was in the kitchen, casually making tea. He didn't even look up. "Can you get that, babe?" That moment still stings. He knew I could barely stand. And yet he asked, not cruelly, just casually. Like nothing had changed. I groaned and shuffled to the door, wincing with every step. When I opened it, I was met with 3 beaming faces. Jake's mother, Linda, was in front, her arms wide open, eyes twinkling like this was some holiday reunion. Behind her stood Jake's father, Ted, and his younger sister, Chloe, all 3 of them carrying suitcases. Linda squealed, "Oh sweetheart, we're here." I blinked. "Here for what?" "To help you, of course," she chirped, stepping inside like she owned the place. "You just had a baby. We figured you'd need all hands on deck." Ted dropped his suitcase right in the center of the living room. "Long drive," he muttered, stretching like he was about to settle in for a weekend football game. Chloe dragged her oversized pink suitcase behind her and sighed dramatically. "Which room's mine?" I stood frozen in the doorway, the pain in my body suddenly eclipsed by a rising wave of disbelief. Jake finally wandered in, tea in hand, and looked at them like they were expected guests. He gave me an awkward smile. "They just want to help." Babe, help. That word would come to haunt me. I smiled tightly. "Of course. Your family. Make yourselves comfortable." I walked to the nursery, gently closed the door behind me, and picked up Noah. His body melted into mine. So small and warm, so innocent. I whispered, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's got this." But I didn't sleep that night. Noah cried just after midnight. And as I got up, wincing, always wincing, Linda burst in before I even reached his crib. She scooped him up like I wasn't there. "You're picking him up too fast," she scolded. "You'll spoil him." "Spoil him? He was 3 days old." At 2 a.m., she returned. I had just changed his diaper when she tutted at me. "Oh no, no, you're swaddling him all wrong." She unwrapped and wrapped him like I was a clueless teenager. By 4 a.m., I was breastfeeding Noah, half asleep, when she walked in again and tried to adjust my hold on my own child. "Linda," I said, low and firm, "go to bed." She patted my shoulder, just trying to help. By sunrise, I felt like a ghost haunting my own home. I walked into the kitchen to find Ted in his boxers, watching the news like it was his house. Linda was brewing coffee. Chloe scrolled on her phone, not even looking up. Not one of them asked how I was. Not one of them thanked me. Not one of them saw me. That's when I understood. They weren't here to help. They were here to move in. So I did what I should have done the moment they walked through that door. I grabbed my phone and stepped outside into the cold morning air. I called Rachel, my best friend, and my lawyer. When she answered, Her voice was soft and sharp. Like always. You sound dead inside. My in-laws just showed up with luggage. I whispered. They said they're staying here. There was silence on the other end. Then, oh hell no. I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. Yeah. House is in your name? She asked. Lease? Yes, then yes. Check your email in an hour. She said. And so I did. I walked back into the house, cradled Noah, and waited. That day, I cooked dinner while bleeding and sore. Linda criticized the meal. Chloe blasted music in her room. Ted took a nap in my bed. Jake did nothing. And at dinner, Linda made an announcement. We've decided to stay until Noah is at least 3 months old. Maybe longer. I smiled. Of course. Linda, your family. The next morning, at 7 a.m., the entire house shook with her scream. I took my time getting up. I stretched, brushed my teeth, and walked out to find her gripping the eviction notice in trembling hands. What the hell is this? She hissed. I yawned. A legal notice. You have 48 hours to leave. That was the first moment I felt like myself again. Because I realized then, you can give birth in pain. But you can also rise from it in power. The eviction notice should have ended it. It should have sent them packing with apologies and flustered goodbyes. But instead, Linda doubled down. That same morning, after the screaming and theatrics, she called for a family meeting. Like we were part of some council and I, a tired new mother, owed them an audience. I found her in the living room, sitting stiffly on the couch with her tea, pinky raised. Like she was royalty. Ted lounged beside her, arms crossed, as if guarding a throne. Chloe sat curled in a chair, scrolling her phone. Jake stood near the window, awkward and quiet, pretending to be elsewhere. Linda smiled, tight-lipped. Forced. I think we got off on the wrong foot. She began. I sat down across from her, legs crossed, heart calm but wary. Do we need to go over the part where you trespassed into my home, insulted my parenting, and refused to leave? Her smile twitched. We thought we were welcome. I raised a brow. Did I invite you? Silence. So, I said, what's this meeting about? Linda exhaled like I'd asked her to solve world peace. Jake and I talked, she said, glancing at him, and we think it would be best if we all worked together to find a solution. A solution? I asked. The solution is you leave. That's not an option, she replied calmly. Too calmly. Ted cleared his throat. Legally, yes. You can kick us out. But that would cause problems. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of problems? Linda set her cup down with a soft clink. It would put Jake in a very difficult position. Family isn't something you just throw away. And there it was. The threat, dressed up as concern. Chloe smirked. Ted looked smug. Jake shifted on his feet, eyes flicking between us. Linda leaned forward, her voice gentle. Practiced. We stay. We help. You don't have to do this alone. And Jake, she looked at him with intention. You won't have to choose sides. That was the moment I understood what kind of game she was playing. She thought I was weak. She mistook exhaustion for surrender. She believed if she pushed just hard enough, I'd give in. But I didn't. I smiled, slow, deliberate, and full of fire. Okay, Linda, you want to help? Let's put that to the test. Her eyes sparkled like she'd won. Of course, dear, we only want what's best for you and the baby. Perfect, I said, rising. Then let's make it official. I returned with a list. A detailed, color-coded, 3-page list. Laundry, deep cleaning, grocery runs, meal prep, night feedings, bottle washing. Every single task I'd carried on my own. Day and night. I dropped it on the table. Linda blinked. What is this? A to-do list. I beamed. Since you're staying to help. I turned to Chloe. You'll handle diapers and bottle duties. She sat up. Are you kidding me? Ted got a list too. Yard work, gutter cleaning, garage cleanup. He choked on his toast. Linda stared at me like I just slapped her. You expect us to do chores? I feigned surprise. But you said you were here to help. By noon, Chloe was gagging at a dirty diaper. Ted had smashed his thumb with a hammer. And Linda was muttering over a pile of laundry like it personally offended her. By day 2, I found her staring blankly at the washing machine, sweat dripping from her forehead. "I don't understand how you do this every day," she whispered. I smiled. "Because I have to, Linda, that's the difference." She finally looked at me, not as a nuisance, not as a child, but as something she hadn't considered before. Strong. The moment I realized the full extent of Linda's manipulation, my heart sank. I thought I was done. I thought they'd given up. But I was only just beginning to scratch the surface of the control they had over my life. Jake's silence was deafening, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. It was late one evening when Jake walked into the bedroom, looking as miserable as I had ever seen him. I was rocking Noah to sleep, my eyes heavy, my body drained, but I could feel his tension even before he opened his mouth. "I need to tell you something," Jake said, voice low. I didn't look at him right away. My mind was already on high alert. "If this is another speech about how your mother means well, I don't want to hear it," I said, my voice sharp. "It's not," Jake said, taking a deep breath. "She called a lawyer today." That hit me like a slap in the face. I stopped rocking Noah and turned to face him, confusion bubbling in my chest. "What? Why?" Jake hesitated, his eyes darting away. She's looking into grandparents' rights." The words hung in the air. I couldn't process them at first. The ground beneath me felt like it had just given way. Linda, my own mother-in-law, wasn't just trying to move into my home and take over my parenting, she was preparing to fight for custody. She wanted to stake a legal claim on my son. I felt my stomach turn cold. Jake's face was drawn, guilt clouding his expression. He tried to explain, but his words fell flat. "She said it's just a precaution. She just wants to make sure she can see Noah." I stared at him, numb. "A precaution?" My voice was barely a whisper. "She's been undermining me since the moment Noah was born. And now you're telling me she's trying to take him?" Jake ran a hand through his hair, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't think she'd actually go through with it. She just wanted options. "You let her do this?" I asked, my voice rising. "You knew about it and said nothing? You've been letting her treat me like a stranger in my own home. And now you're telling me she's trying to steal my child?" "I didn't think she would," he repeated weakly. I shook my head, disappointment and hurt pooling inside me. I had given everything to this family. I had trusted Jake, believed in us, and now I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, watching everything fall apart. And the worst part? Jake still wasn't seeing it. He still wasn't standing by me. By now, I knew what I had to do. I walked into the living room the next morning, my heart hardening with each step. Linda was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping her tea, as if nothing had changed. Ted was scrolling through his phone, and Chloe was scrolling through hers, too. No one acknowledged me as I walked in. Not a single word of thanks. Not even a hint of guilt for what they had done. I stood tall, looking straight at Linda. "So, when were you planning to tell me you were hiring a lawyer?" I asked, my voice low and calm. Linda blinked, looking surprised. "Excuse me? Don't play dumb," I said, the fury rising in my chest. "Jake told me everything. You're looking into grandparents' rights." Her face froze. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then, she set her tea down with a soft clink inside. "Dear, you're being dramatic. I would never take Noah from you." "You already are," I snapped. "You're trying to take my son. You've overstepped for the last time." Ted looked up from his phone. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. I turned to Jake, who was still standing there, looking like he had no idea what to do. "Jake," I said, my voice steady but final. "You need to choose right now. Whose side are you on?" For the first time, Jake looked torn, but the silence between us told me everything I needed to know. He would never stand up for me. He would never choose me. I smiled, a bitter, knowing smile. I turned to Linda. "You want this to go further? Fine, let's go all in. I'll be filing for a restraining order against you." Her face drained of color. The room fell into an awkward silence. "I've had enough," I said, my voice quiet but strong. "You've crossed the line. You'll not get near my son again." The tension in the room was suffocating. But I stood my ground. I could feel Jake's gaze on me. But his silence only confirmed what I already knew. I wasn't just fighting Linda anymore. I was fighting for my own life, my own space, and for my son's future. Later that day, I packed my bags and Noah's essentials. I was done. Done with the manipulation. Done with the control. I called Rachel, who immediately offered a place to stay. I left that night, without looking back. I filed for divorce the following week. I knew I had to start over. I knew that I would raise Noah on my own. And as I looked ahead, I realized that some battles were never meant to be won by compromising. Some battles were meant to be fought with strength. And I would win. As I moved forward, I knew my life had irrevocably changed. The pain of betrayal was heavy. But the strength I found in standing up for myself, for my son, was greater than any hurt they had caused. It wasn't just about my mother-in-law anymore. It wasn't about Jake's failure to stand by me. It was about reclaiming my life and my space. And Noah, always Noah. Months passed, and the court ruled in my favor. I was granted sole custody of Noah. Linda's attempt to claim grandparents' rights was dismissed. She lost because the judge saw her for what she was, a controlling force who refused to respect boundaries. Jake tried to reach out to me several times after everything fell apart. He apologized, said he regretted everything, but the truth was, some betrayals can't be undone. Some people don't deserve second chances. I raised Noah on my own, surrounded by the love of real friends, like Rachel, who understood the value of trust and respect. And that was all I needed. I learned that it's okay to let go of people who drain your energy and bring toxicity into your life. It's okay to put your own happiness and well-being first. Through it all, I realized that sometimes, standing up for yourself isn't just about taking action. It's about knowing your worth and never allowing anyone to make you feel small. And in the end, that's the greatest lesson of all. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more real-life stories. You never know what life's going to throw at you. But one thing's for sure, you always have the power to take control of your own journey.